In the early 90s, Sega jumped onto the beat-em-up bandwagon with Streets of Rage and its two sequels for the Sega Genesis. Even as someone who has never personally played a Streets of Rage game till now, I am aware of its legacy, which means fans of the game have been itching for a new title with only ports to tide them over. Well now, 16 years since the release of the last entry, Streets of Rage 3, comes Streets of Rage 4, a game that brings the beat-em-up genre roaring into modern gaming. Streets of Rage 4 is set 10 years after the events of 3, seeing the fall of the villainous Syndicate X give rise to a new generation of criminal masterminds, Syndicate Y. Returning characters Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding team up with newcomers Floyd Irea and Cherry Hunter. Together, the crew take to the streets to mop up the mess Mr. and Ms. Y leave in their wake. The plot is paper thin, like a good early 90s action movie would be, but is brought to life by gorgeous artwork. And whilst the story doesn't carry much weight and all comes to a very abrupt end, it is all secondary to the gameplay. Streets of Rage 4 takes an if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach to beat-em-ups, whilst refining those mechanics and sprinkling some new ones on top. There are heavy and light attacks, grabs, throws, and weapons that can be picked up. Being good at the game requires the player to understand an enemy's capabilities and how to tactfully handle multiple combatants at once. The player does have a special move they can use, although it does deplete a little of their health, which can fortunately be recovered via a successful follow-up attack. If the player wishes to clear a large swath of enemies, or deal big damage to a boss, they can break out their super attack at the cost of a star, a few of which are hidden on each level. Likewise, players can consume apples they discover for a small health boost, or an entire roasted chicken to completely replenish their HP. The difficulty of the game can be inconsistent. I was having trouble with one specific stage, attempting it over and over again for what felt like hours, only to beat the next level in a single shot. Likewise, I found the bosses to be equally all over the place in terms of challenge, with the final boss being one of the easiest to defeat. The game is fundamentally pretty demanding, however. If you lose your 2 lives, you have to start right back at the beginning of the stage. There are 5 overall difficulty options, with the ability to modify those further by giving yourself more lives and stars. Gaining cash from pickups or dealing damage to enemies will also replenish your lives over time. Balancing these systems and the combat against different enemy types forms the core of the game. When to heal up, when to attack, when to use your super. They all come together for an immensely satisfying, if at some points inconsistent, experience. The game can also be tackled with another player online, or up to 4 players locally. I only got a few moments to spend with this feature, but juggling enemies, first for the series, is a lot of fun. The standout of the game for me is the presentation, both visually and audibly. The art is beautifully hand-drawn and given some gorgeous texture thanks to the game's lighting. This is paired with an absolutely stunning soundtrack, which pulls in different genres to create something familiar and yet totally unique. Those players looking for a more 16-bit vibe are also in luck. There is a retro toggle for the music, and characters from previous games can be unlocked in their 16-bit style. However, over the course of a single 10-hour playthrough, I only unlocked Adam Hunter, so it might take playing on harder difficulties, obtaining a better stage ranking, or trying out different modes to obtain the additional 12 characters. Fortunately, it's so fun to play that those looking to 100% the game will have a blast doing so. Streets of Rage 4 is proud of its legacy. That's evident from the start, with the number 4 following the title. Its commitment to what made the franchise such a beloved series in the first place pairs brilliantly with its visual makeover and innovated mechanics. It'll teleport you back to a time when you were constantly feeding arcade cabinets with quarters just to make it that bit further in a stage. I do wish the story had a little more meat on its bone, and that the difficulty of the game had a progressive ramp, but neither of those things inhibited my enjoyment of taking down Syndicate Y on the Streets of Rage.